Good morning, sixth grade, lesson 8 in Catechism today. Tuesday we took on lesson 7, which is God creating man, and there was 3 differences we pointed out with the creation from man compared to the rest, or why we would say man is the crown of his creation. 1, God formed him from the dust of the earth. 2, breathed him on the breath of life, gave him a soul, most important. And 3, created Adam and Eve in the image of God. He created them holy. They were sinless. That, of course, doesn't last very long. Today we're going to move on with what we call God the preserver. Now the word preserve means makes it last, guys. We put preservatives in food so they last longer. And so what the lesson deals with today is saying God created this world, and then he didn't say, hey, good luck, let's see if you can do it. He said, I'm going to make sure this world lasts. And so we're going to see even today, thousands of years after God created this world, how he is still preserving us today. The first point we're after is, what does God provide for us today? And we'll start with Genesis 45. It says this: Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants. He cried out, have everyone leave my presence. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? All his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I'm your brother Joseph, the one that you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourself for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by the great deliverance. So then it was not you that sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all of Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay. You shall live in the region of Goshen and be near me, you, your children and grandchildren, your flocks, herds, all that you have. I will provide for you there, because 5 years of famine are still to come. Otherwise you and your household and all who belong to you will become destitute. You can see for yourself, and so can my brother Benjamin, that it is really I who am speaking to you. Tell my father about all the honor accorded me in Egypt and about everything you have seen, and bring my father down here quickly. Guys, you got the story of Joseph making himself known to his brothers. Now remember, his brothers had sold him into slavery. He got sent to Egypt. In Egypt, he works for Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife tries to put moves on him. Joseph does the godly thing and says no to him. Potiphar's wife gets angry, has him thrown in prison. He rots in prison, interprets the dreams. That eventually gets him out of prison a few years later when Pharaoh has some dreams. Then he's elevated to the second most powerful man. He collects all this food. Joseph's brothers are running out of food, so they travel to Egypt to buy food the first time. And then the second time they're back again, and then when they come back a second time here, this is when Joseph makes himself known to him. And as he spells out for me, he says, guys, I'm providing you food, but I can't keep doing that. You can't keep living in Israel, because, guys, it's going to start to get really crazy and chaotic out here. You guys are making the trip to get food because there's famine in your land, and you are rich enough to buy food from me. But everybody in this world isn't rich enough to buy food. And guys, I don't know about you, but if my choice was starve to death or steal from somebody, I would probably steal from somebody. And so that's what Joseph is really getting at. He's saying, guys, traveling back and forth is not safe anymore. There's going to be groups of robbers and bandits who will just jump you on the way and kill you and take your food. So get down here in Egypt, where there's 1, plenty of food, and 2, where I can protect you. And so as we go about what is God providing for us today, guys, you can see how Joseph was smart enough to look back now and say, hey, God had a plan for this from the start when he sent me here. I didn't understand it, but now I do. It was to save your lives and my father's children and grandchildren to be able to do those things. Let's move on. Talk about what else God's doing for us. Psalm 104, verse 14. He makes grass grow for the cattle. He plants for people to cultivate. He brings forth food from the earth. I love this passage because, when we look at this one, hey, it sounds like Joseph is providing for the people. And I like to say, you know what? My family eats because I work hard and I buy them food. So I don't really need God to provide for us. I'm doing a pretty good job at providing for us. And God says, Bauer, slow yourself down. Bauer, can you make grass grow? Do you make rain fall? Do you make the sun shine? Without plants, we have nothing to eat. We've already talked about this in science class as um, when we classified things on how we get our energy from plants, guys. And so it's just a great reminder for us to say, yeah, I can provide, I can work. God has given me that ability, but God is still in control of all things. And we are reminded of that from time to time when there's flooding or there's a drought and things can't grow, that no matter how hard we work, God still controls that stuff. And we need to make sure we give credit, thanks, and praise back to God for what he does. Psalm 145, verse 15 and 16, another passage. Sometimes we say this as a table prayer. When I was in school, we would say this once a week as instead of saying, Come, Lord Jesus, we would say, The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food at the proper time. You open your hand, and you satisfy the desires of every living thing. Now, guys, this passage might be a challenge for some of us because we know the hunger that's in this world. And it's a problem everywhere. Lots of times we always look at it like America has plenty of food, and there's poor countries around the world that are starving. We have hunger in America, and the reason we have hunger in America is because God has kept a promise. God has given this world plenty of food. The tragedy is some of us have way more than we need, and some of us don't have enough. I sometimes get home from school, and the first words out of my mouth is, "What's for dinner? I'm starving." And I've learned not to say that. I literally don't know what it means to be starving. I have always had food in my life. And so this passage is certainly true of me, guys, but you got to realize this is not God being a liar because he's not giving food to everybody. I also don't want you to think, well, only the unbelievers starve. God always feeds his believers. That's not true either. There are plenty of believers that have starved. What this is God saying, I have created a world that can feed its people if the world would learn how to share. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to say, God, you've given us plenty. How can we help make sure people are in need? And Garden Homes Church is a great example of that. We have a food pantry where we can help stock those bags, fill those bags, and distribute those bags so that people in our own community who are less fortunate make sure they have good food at the proper time for them. We'll jump to Proverbs. I love reading passages out of the Proverbs and seeing the wisdom that God gave to people that are shared with us. Proverbs 30, verse 8 is a great passage that you and I might look at as a little bit crazy. He gives 3 prayers. He says, number 1, keep falsehood and lies far from me. In other words, don't let me fall into the trap of telling lies. Number 2, give me neither poverty nor riches. 3, give me my daily bread. It's a crazy prayer, guys. This one's not from Solomon, but that the guy says, I don't want to be poor, don't give me poverty, but I don't want to be rich either. Now, this is a king, guys, who's saying this prayer. And what he's done is he's looked back at his life and all the people who he's ruled over, and he says, don't give me poverty. I don't want to be so poor that I'll do dumb things like steal for food, because that's not godly. But don't give me riches either, because if you gave me riches, I'd be an idiot. I'd think riches buy happiness, and I would probably fall from faith. And I think it's a great prayer for us to think of as well, too. What do we say in the Lord's Prayer? We say this phrase, don't we? Give me my daily bread, Lord. I don't need an abundance. What does God do? God gives us an abundance. What is those abundance so often? It's a distraction to us. We talk about so many things that we have that we need to learn to live without, because in the end, sometimes it can just be temptation. When I was young, it's always, you watch too much TV, and then as kids, we'd be like, but there's educational things on TV. Yeah, like any of us are watching the educational shows on TV. No, we're watching the garbage that's polluting our brains on TV. Today, with technology, it's social media, cell phones, and all that stuff. Well, there's good things out there. Yes. Are you using it for good things? A lot of say, yeah. Some of us are lying to ourselves saying, yeah, I'm using it for good. No. This king was smart enough to say, I can't have too much riches. It's going to lead to temptations for me. I don't want those temptations. We need to be able to do the same thing. If the technology has given us a temptation, you got to get away from the temptation. God, just give me what I need to stay alive and can stay focused on you. There are so many warnings in the Bible that tries to get us away from wealth because he knows what a temptation wealth can be. Keep that in your mind as you go through life. Why do you want to be what you want to be when you grow up in life? If it's because they're rich, that's not a good reason. That's just inviting temptation. Matthew 6:11, guys, is the Lord's Prayer. Give us today our daily bread. Daily bread is everything I need. We're going to get this at the end of the year. It's everything I need to stay alive. So it's needs, guys. Now, what I want to stress with you with needs are something that I cannot live without. That has been true for all of history. Now, the reason I say that is many of you are going to say, I need my cell phone. I need my TV. I need the internet. I need computer. No, you don't. How do we know that? Because for thousands and thousands of years, people have lived without that. So that's not a need. That's a want that God has blessed us with, but it's not a need. I need air. I need oxygen. I need food. I need water. I need shelter. Those are needs that have always been there since the start of time. Those are needs. So what do we ask God to provide for us? We ask God to provide for our bodily needs. Sometimes sixth graders will put in the word physical here. God, will you give me my physical needs? I need to stay alive, God. Match those needs for me today. Okay. That leads us to question 2. What does God defend us against? Guys, this is the step more important. Question 1 was physical. You're going to see question 2 is going to move to spiritual. We'll start with Exodus 2, 1 through 10. You'll get the story of Moses. Now a man by the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. She became pregnant, gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds, sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying. She felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrews' babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby, nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water. So guys, Moses was born in the time when Pharaoh was throwing all the Levite or Israelite babies into the Jordan River to kill them. So if a baby boy was born, into the river it went. Lots of times when we're young, we read that story and it's like, oh, it's so good to be a girl. You weren't thrown in the river. It wasn't any better to be a girl. Because as you grew up, women had 2 choices. Die alone or marry the Egyptians. Because they couldn't provide for themselves, guys. And so the Israelite women were in a really tough spot of, well, I don't really want to marry an Egyptian because they're the enemy. They killed my brother kind of thing. And yet I also need somebody to provide for me and take care of me and love me. And so it was a real tough spot for both things. Anyway, look at it. Moses is born. I don't know what it was that made him look like a fine child, but mom doesn't play the rule, won't let him die. Hides him for 3 months, can't hide him anymore, puts him in a basket, puts him along the Nile River, and prays for the best. I don't know what she was praying for. Don't let a crocodile get him. Let him float down this river. I mean, she doesn't obviously want him floating down the river because she sticks it among the reeds. But the craziest thing happens. Pharaoh's daughter finds it. It's not like Pharaoh didn't recognize it. He said, look, this is one of those Hebrew babies. And I'm just shocked at the story because can you picture Pharaoh's daughter? Pharaoh's daughter now walks back into the palace and says, hey, Dad, found this baby, and I want to keep it. And Pharaoh says, okay, when Pharaoh should have said, no way, we're killing all those things. Then the next cool thing happens. Miriam, Moses' sister, runs up to Pharaoh's daughter and says, hey, do you need somebody to take care of this kid for you? Absolutely. And so Miriam goes and gets mom. So Moses is raised by mom and paid to do it. And so you can just see God protecting it, guys. When you read that story in the Bible, you got to read that and you got to step back and say, there is obviously a God out there because there's no way a baby gets put in a basket, doesn't tip over, Pharaoh's daughter finds it, Pharaoh okays raising it, pays mom to raise it, and now is going to be getting the best education the world can be and grow up in a palace trained to be the most powerful man in the world. It's just awesome as God looks out to defend us against dangers that are out there, okay? Let's go to Psalm 91. Some of you might remember Satan used Psalm 91 against Jesus. We'll use it as a comfort today. No harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift up their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Now, guys, we look at this passage, we say, hey, no harm will befall you. What's he getting at? Well, you got to get God's definition of harm. God's definition of harm is something that'll overwhelm you and a disaster that'll put you into hell. So this passage, guys, is literally not talking physical. It's talking spiritual. Why will we not get overwhelmed spiritually? Because God's going to send his angels, just like he did for Jesus. Angels, go attend Jesus. Don't let Satan tempt him right now. And he does the same thing for us. Angels, go protect Bauer so that temptations don't come to him that would make him lose his faith. What's my job? My job is to never say no to God. And yet, so often, guys, that's exactly what we do. Why do I fall into temptation? Because I think I can do it on my own, and I say no to God's help. Growing up, my mom said, you got the wrong friends. No, I don't. I'm fine. You're going to make poor decisions. No, I won't. I'll make good decisions. What was I saying? I don't need help from my parents. I don't need help from God. I can do this all on my own. What happened? I fell into temptation like crazy. Okay. Now, if you live long enough, guys, you'll hear cool stories of how God has used his angels physically to protect people. In other words, yes, he can physically stop you from falling and harming yourself. I look back at my life, and there are so many times that I should not be on this planet. From a young age, at age 1.5, I drank poison. It should have killed me. I'm still here. At age 7, I should have drowned in a swimming pool. I'm still here. I think it's up to 5 times in my life I've gone into the ditch in a car at over 60 miles an hour. I have yet to have a scratch on my body from any of those things. My mom usually sits there and makes fun of me and says, man, your angels have to be so tired because they've prevented me from being harmed so many times. So guys, if you live long enough, you'll probably be able to tell stories just like I can of, yep, God sent an angel. There's just no other way I can explain it besides God sent an angel to keep me safe. And it's awesome to do those things, to understand God is out there and he is protecting us and looking out for us. And praise be God that he does that. It's also very humbling to think, I always look at that and say, why is God keeping me alive? Man, he must have a plan for me. He wants me to do something, so let's make sure we take those opportunities. Psalm 139, it says this, if I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my beds in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand will hold me fast. It's one of those passages where we talk about God's omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience all together. God is everywhere. He's all-powerful. He's all-knowing. I can't hide from him. I can't get away from him. It's just a comfort that says, God, you are everywhere, looking out for me, protecting me, keeping me safe from all things that are coming after me that Satan wants to use against me. It's such a beautiful comfort. Isaiah 49 verse 2 says this, he made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow. He concealed me in his quiver. It's using picture language, guys, to help you understand God's protecting me. He took my arrow that is sharpened, and why do we put in a quiver? So we hold on to them, and so that they don't bang on anything and get chipped or dull. That's what God's doing for us. He's just protecting us, guys. And it's just such a wonderful comfort of what God does to make sure we remain faithful to him and get heaven someday. 1 Peter 5:8 talks about who he needs to protect us from. Famous passage. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. Okay, guys, I'm going to go through this passage. Number 1, be alert. Understand when temptation comes to us. So often we get ourselves overwhelmed with temptation because we're not aware of what's going to happen. I sometimes will give the phrase to sixth graders, you play with fire and you expect it not to get burned? Really? I looked over at my neighbor in the middle of a test. What did I think I was going to see? Besides answers to a test. That wasn't being alert. My friends call me up and they say, hey, you want to come over? My parents aren't here. Yeah, let's do it. What an idiot. If they have to use the phrase, my parents aren't home, that says we're up to trouble, isn't it? And so that's not being alert if I go over to that friend's house. That's walking into it. Be of sober mind says make sure you're thinking clearly. Understand the situation. Always have a way out of it. I think times back in my life on how quickly it gets out of hand, guys, and that's the biggest warning I can give to you guys. Understand a little decision can instantly become super, super big. You get older and you go to a party where there's drinking, and then you try to get a ride home with somebody. And that guy says, sure, I'm capable, I'm fine to drive. Man, you could be in a situation over your head real fast, right? So make sure you're taking it seriously. Why do I take it seriously? Because your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. He's not prowling around looking to take a bite out of somebody. He's looking to destroy somebody. Now you need to understand how lions work. Lions are sneaky, lions are fast, lions are powerful, and lions always go after the weakest ones. So Satan knows what your weaknesses are, guys, whether it's disrespect, anger, technology. He is going to find your weakness and he's going to try to destroy him. Now, what are we supposed to do? Resist him. Stand firm in your faith. Why? Because this is so often it's like, this is so hard. My life is so rough. Peter says, give me a break. You're just like everybody else. Satan is still trying to destroy every believer. You are part of the family of believers. Satan wants you for lunch. That's reality. You have the ability to say no to him if you are alert and sober and you are standing firm in your faith with the help of God. It's a great reminder, guys, for us to say, God, help me stand firm. So as we go back over here, guys, question 1, what does God give me? He gave me the physical needs. Question 2, he defends me against danger. Now, guys, that's physical transitioning over to spiritual. And then he protects me from evil. This is what I really need, guys. God, if your plan for me is to starve to death and stop giving me my physical needs, fine. Just don't let Satan overwhelm me and make me stop believing in you. Protect me from that evil so that I remain a believer and I get heaven. I have to have the right mindset of who cares how bad this world is because heaven awaits. Now, that's not an easy mindset to have, guys, but it's what we need to struggle for. So the truth of the day, what does God do for us, or how does he still preserve us? Number 1, he provides my bodily needs. Number 2, he defends, guards, and protects me from all danger and from Satan, who is trying to bring those evils into the world. It's the wonderful truth. As we rattle through the first article again, guys, I'll stop and show you where today's lesson fits into that. I believe in God the Father Almighty, lesson 5. Maker of heaven and earth, lesson 6. I believe that God created me and all that exists and that he gave me my body and soul, lesson 7. Eyes, ears, and all my members, my mind, and all my abilities. I believe that God still preserves me, lesson 8, by richly and daily providing clothing, shoes, food, drink, house, home, spouse, children, land, cattle, and all I own and all I need to keep my body and life. That's all providing, first part of lesson 8. God also preserves me by defending me against all danger, guarding and protecting me from all evil. The rest of lesson 8. All this God does only because he's my good and merciful Father in heaven and not because I've earned or deserved it. For all this I have to thank and praise, to serve and obey him. This is most certainly true. These will be things we'll talk about in the lessons to come. Okay, guys, let's close it with prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for being the God that provides for our daily needs. We need to remember that we just need the needs, guys, but we need to turn back and thank you because you give us so much more. We have more than our needs. We have so many wants provided for us. We live in a bountiful country, and yet that's not true of everybody, Lord. So give us the opportunity to live with eyes wide open where we can see people who are in need and help fill those needs for them. Lord, more important than the physical needs, though, you gave us the spiritual needs. You protect us, you guard us, you sent Jesus to die on the cross to forgive us so that we will have heaven someday. Keep Satan from ever doubting us or bringing temptations to us that we cannot handle. Help us to be alert and to stand firm in the faith. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, 6, you got lesson 8 for your worksheet. There's a few things I want to point out for us on lesson 8. The first one is on the bottom of the front side. It says, think about the last meal which you ate. Name all the things that you ate in that meal which didn't come from plants or animals which grow. Think carefully. Guys, as you think carefully, you should realize everything you eat comes from a plant or an animal. Okay, that's what they're getting at. That's why they said think carefully. So number 8, what you write down is name all the things that you ate that didn't come from it. You write down everything comes from that. Then as I flip that over, it says 9. Now name all the things from your last meal which did come from plants or animals. I don't know what your last meal was, guys, but you write the whole thing down because the whole thing traces its roots back to some plant or some animal. Okay. Last one I want to help you with is number 13. It says, according to Luther's explanation of the first article of the Apostles' Creed, name several things which God daily provides for you. This is Luther's explanation to the first article, and God daily provides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things. I think you have like 7 or 8 blanks there, guys. So you're after this section for number 13. And you're just listing those one at a time, A through H. Blessings.